Big Eddie will not be seen this evening, but will return next week at its usual time. Now stay tuned for the following special presentation. Debuting May 2nd, 1975 on CBS at 8/7 Central was the television pilot for the short-lived series Popi, airing opposite reruns of Sanford & Son and Kolchak the Night Stalker, billed as the Friday comedy special. This relatively obscure entry of mid-70s TV was based on the 1969 film Popi, with Alan Arkin and Rita Moreno.
Good boys, good kids. Junior's 11.
What the hell are you hitting me for?
Who brought the mailbox?
I told you I don't know. I ain't no fortune teller.
Luis is 9.
Yeah, but these guys in school, if you don't give them your lunch money, they'll beat you up.
Who does this to you?
Nice kids. Don't give you no trouble.
What happened in the bedroom? You just wanted to try it?
You want these boys? I'll give them to you. Sign the papers, everything. You think I'm joking? I'm not joking.
What kind of man is it that gives away his children?
Let them grow up to be elevator operators and bus boys. And then when they're 35 years old, they get the same crap from their kids. They say, but Bobby was a good man. He kept the family together.
3 jobs, 5 hours sleep a night.
Winston Churchill got 4 hours sleep a night. He was running a whole country. And they did this to you? Son of us, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. You're the saint of impossible things, and you got to help me because I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it.
Popi had a dream, and the only way he could make it come true was to put his 2 boys in a rowboat and set them adrift in the ocean.
The film was the story of Abraham Rodriguez, a Puerto Rican widower struggling to raise his 2 young boys, 11-year-old Junior, played by Miguel Alejandro, and 9-year-old Luis, played by Ruben Figueroa, in the squalor of a rundown, 1-room tenement apartment in New York's Spanish Harlem. Popi works 3 jobs, getting 5 hours sleep a night to provide for his family, but fears losing his sons to ghetto life. His main aim in life is to ensure his sons a decent future. Just how will he do this? He's working on it. Meanwhile, his girlfriend Lupe comes over on his 1 day off a week, with Cafe Bustelo and to take care of his needs as a man, while the boys are sent out on an errand. Early in the film, Junior is discovered to have skipped school to hang out with boys drinking in a neighboring apartment, as well as explore his sexual curiosity with the neighbor girl. Later, Popi and Lupe's pillow talk is interrupted by a disturbed neighborhood boy who cuts the head off a pigeon, taunting Junior and Luis. Things come to a head after he learns his sons have told neighborhood boys their father is a gangster, which results in a violent incident against Junior and Luis once this falsehood is discovered. After he happens into working a banquet for Cuban refugees, Popi finalizes his scheme. Realizing America is more generous to political refugees than the common poor already in country, he plans to set his sons adrift in a rowboat off Miami to stage their discovery as Cuban escapees to receive asylum, and with it, a better life than he can offer. Posing as a writer, he interviews Cuban immigrants for information on the country. After teaching his boys details about Cuba, as well as how to row and motor a boat, he takes them via bus to Miami, where he steals a rowboat and sends them out with specific instructions to return to shore by rowing after they discard the motor. When too much time passes, Popi fears the boys are lost and almost drowns himself. But here's a radio report about the rescue of 2 brave Cuban boys. Found dehydrated and sunburned, the boys are hospitalized and showered with attention from the public, including flowers, toys, adoption offers, and even an invitation to the White House. Disguising himself, Popi sneaks in to let them know the scheme was working, and they would soon have a better life, being adopted by well-off parents. Overwhelmed with emotion, the boys utterly reject this plan, and their loud argument, in English, alerts the staff. With the hoax exposed, they all happily return to their old neighborhood with their loving father. Star Alan Arkin hailed from Brooklyn, a descendant of Jewish immigrants from Ukraine, Russia, and Germany. His family moved to Los Angeles when he was 11, where his father David worked as a set designer, as well as a lyricist, perhaps most famously penning the words to Pete Seeger's Black and White, which spoke of the Supreme Court decision to end racial segregation in public schools.
Together we learn to read and write, to read and write. And now a child can understand, this is the law of all the land, all the land. Oh, the ink is black, the page is white. Together we learn to read and write, to read and write.
This and his leftist tendencies didn't win him fans during the McCarthy era, and he was brought up to testify before the House Un-American Activities Committee. Refusing to answer questions about his political ideology, David, as well as wife Beatrice, were both fired from their jobs. Son Alan, of course, became well known as an actor of both stage and screen, and perhaps, ironically, starred as Russian submarine officer Yuri Rozanov in the 1966 comedy The Russians Are Coming, The Russians Are Coming, which satirized the Cold War.
What is your name, if may I ask?
Yuri Rozanov.
Yuri Rozanov.
Yes.
May I call you Yuri?
You could call me by my nickname.
What's that?
You. Yes.
Well, thank you, you.
Of course, today, society is more critical of actors portraying other ethnicities, such as Arkin playing the Puerto Rican Popi. But this casting approach was very typical in this era. In addition to the well-known Puerto Rican actress Rita Moreno, who had a supporting role in Popi, were the fresh-faced acting newcomers from East Harlem playing Popi's two boys. The boys were discovered after a 6-month talent search of thousands of prospects, conducted mainly at public schools by experienced casting director Marion Doherty. Thousands were whittled down to 300 hopefuls, invited to a neighborhood boys' club to meet the filmmakers. A week was spent interviewing each boy, until finally a dozen finalists were sent to Donald Buca for a cram course in film acting, which of course included 10-year-old Miguel Alejandro and 9-year-old Ruben Figueroa, whose families were from Puerto Rico. Miguel had no acting experience, while the limited acting experience that Ruben had was delivering 2 lines in 98 performances of the off-Broadway production The Ox Cart, as well as appearing on local kids' TV. They were given extensive preparation in advance of filming, which included nearly 3 weeks of speech instruction, as well as training as to the demands of a film set. A final screen test with Alan Arkin clinched it, and the 2 boys were cast in the film, which was finally shot in April and May of 1968, mostly on location in Spanish Harlem and Miami. The talent search and casting were documented in the short film One Summer of Stardom. Having never even visited New York City, I looked into the history of the neighborhood where Arthur Hiller spent several weeks directing the film crew on location. East Harlem is a neighborhood of Upper Manhattan, bounded by 96th Street to the south, 5th Avenue to the west, and the East River and Harlem River to the east and north. In the 19th century, it was a rural area with residential settlements starting to develop in the 1860s, as pockets of immigrants began to settle there. The elevated transit line built by 1880 and the Lexington Avenue subway by 1919 connected it to Lower Manhattan and urbanized the area, resulting in the construction of numerous apartment buildings and brownstones. The people that settled there were originally poor German, Irish, Scandinavian, and Eastern European Jewish immigrants, with an Italian population arriving later. The neighborhood around 110th Street and Lexington Avenue became known as Spanish Harlem after World War I, when Puerto Rican and Latin Americans began to move in. As other ethnic groups, particularly Italians, chose to move to other areas of New York City, what was known as Spanish Harlem began to encompass the entire area bordered by the boundaries earlier listed. East Harlem still has one of the largest Hispanic communities in New York City, largely Puerto Ricans, followed by Dominicans, Cubans, and Mexicans. While in modern times the neighborhood has undergone some gentrification, the area is historically known for not only the highest jobless rate in New York City, but also rampant drug abuse, homelessness, and an asthma rate 5 times the national average. I was surprised to not be able to find the specific street used for filming where the Rodriguez family lived, although the elevated train tracks that run along Park Avenue are visible about 2 blocks away. Popi was released in 1969 and played in theaters for a couple of years. By 1974, Popi entered TV syndication and was in regular rotation on the late-night, Saturday afternoon, and later cable TV movie circuit into the mid-'80s. The film was rated G, which may be surprising given the corporal punishment Popi disciplines his boys with, the implied sexual situations, animal abuse, and the situational nudity. But the 1960s was an entirely different era, and the MPAA rating system was newly implemented. Go back and listen to the podcast on the history of MPAA ratings for additional context. And while showing boys running around on the beach bare-assed used to be a way to depict the innocence of youth, this was even used in the opening shot of Disney's Pollyanna. Western society no longer views such scenes through innocent eyes in a post-satanic panic world. The film was generally well received, with some criticizing the uneven story, such as Roger Ebert, who noted, "The first half, set in New York, is rich and warm, filled with the flavor of city life. The second half, involving the Florida plan, functions only on the level of TV situation comedy." Funny he should say that. Apparently, screenwriters Lester and Tina Pine, as well as producer Herbert Leonard, came around to thinking the same thing. Leonard first had Alan Arkin in mind for the series lead, but he was unavailable, possibly busy for the upcoming Baby Blue Marine in pre-production at the time. Arkin was the one who suggested Hector Elizondo for the part, saying, "The guy is better than I am." This led Leonard to head to Elizondo's off-Broadway appearance in Steam Bath, in which he played God, with Leonard reporting to columnist Tom Rist, "He was simply terrific. I knew right then I had the lead for Popi. One of the main virtues of the show is the ability of Abraham Rodriguez to laugh at himself. He's really a very heroic character, a man determined to survive. He is no caricature, but a warm and humorous man." In February 1975, the production of the Popi pilot was announced, with Hector Elizondo stepping into the title role. With Puerto Rican actress Liz Torres as Lupe, and newcomers Anthony Perez as Junior and Dennis Vasquez as Luis, the pilot started off CBS's Friday evening on May 2nd. Titled The Ragamuffin Army, the story had Popi still wanting to better the lives of his hooky-playing, numbers-running boys, but this time with a far less extreme plan, by having them join the Boy Scouts, with Popi serving as Scoutmaster. The show returned as a series the following January as a mid-season replacement for the failed Joe and Sons. Edith Diaz replaced Torres as Lupe, Abraham's neighbor and love interest. There were 10 additional episodes produced, and I've been able to dig into old TV listings to fill out episode descriptions not previously findable online, which are now entered into IMDb. In Man's Best Amigo, the boys decide to adopt a Great Dane that does not belong to them, which wreaks havoc on their tiny apartment, not to mention the food budget. But Popi gets an idea of just how to make some money with the dog. It's Crazy to Have a Car in New York saw Popi receive a rundown car as payment for a debt, which causes more trouble than it's worth, especially since Popi does not have a driver's license. An audio recording of a voiceover promo for this episode, heard over the closing credits of that week's All in the Family, survives, courtesy the website Television Obscurities.
All in the Family was recorded on tape before a live audience.
How do you operate a car without a driver's license, a parking place, or money? Popi's driving career seems headed on a collision course with comedy. Tomorrow night following Good Times. Sunday night, don't miss the big reunion of Sonny and Cher.
In The Orphans, Junior and Luis scam the neighborhood for funeral expenses for the still-living Popi. Love Letters had the boys decide it was time for Popi to marry Lupe, so they concoct an elaborate scheme to make him jealous. In A Box of Havana Cigars, Popi tries to get a promotion at work using illegal imported cigars from Cuba, which gives his sons some big ideas for a class president campaign. For The Vacation, Popi and the boys apartment sit for a well-off family that goes on vacation, whose son, played by Robbie Rist, finds the boys hilarious. Meanwhile, their own apartment is broken into by the boy that Popi had hired to guard it. The Mugger had Popi save up money to buy a new bed for the boys, only to end up fighting a mugger who turns out to be someone he thought was his friend. Summertime and the Livin' Ain't Easy carried no plot description. However, the title is a take on a classic jazz standard by George Gershwin, with a popular rendition by Ella Fitzgerald being the most well-known. In Oh Promise Me, a woman from Puerto Rico shows up out of Popi's past, now wealthy and wanting to marry him. And in the final episode, With This Ring, Junior wants to pledge future marriage to his girlfriend in accordance with Puerto Rican custom, to the dismay of her wealthy father. The show aired on Tuesdays at 8:30, 7:30 p.m. Central, following Good Times.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, Schlemiel, Schlemazel, Haas and Bepp Incorporated. We're gonna do it. Give us any chance.
But fellow newcomer Laverne and Shirley, becoming a near-instant hit in the wake of its Happy Days lead-in on ABC, proved to be just too much for Popi. After the third airing, the show was in trouble, prompting speculation in the press that the show would be canceled if ratings did not improve. The week following the 6th series episode, the show was preempted for a special 1-hour MASH. However, the following week, Popi did not return. 2 weeks later, the show was officially canceled. CBS burned off the final 4 episodes in July and August. Very little background information is available regarding the series' production. I even found conflicting information about the theme song used. While the 1969 film had a score composed by Dominic Frontiere, with the lyrics sung over the closing credits written by Norman Gimbel, these compositions were evidently not used for the show. Period articles referred to the theme used as titled, "It's Gonna Be Terrific," possibly sung by Hector Elizondo as Popi. Whether or not this is the same theme as the one Vincent Terrace's reference book on TV openings refers to, Popi's theme, composed by George Del Barrio, is not known. In any event, I am pleased to present an audio recording of the theme not heard in nearly 50 years, sent to me courtesy TV historian Billy Ingram.
Sometimes you want to stay in bed, so you pull the covers all over your head. If you jump up and move instead, it's gonna be terrific. The best things to see are free, you know. That's right, like the stars and the moon and the snow. Go to the park and watch things grow. It's gonna be terrific. Look at all we have here, so much to enjoy.
Hot dog bun and long home run.
Oh boy, that's America. I got a lot of plans in my beret. I'm going to be ready in every way. Maybe my dream comes true today. Why? It's gonna be terrific.
The series was filmed single camera style, mostly on location, with a laugh track later added, as noted by Hector Elizondo, who praised the show in a period article. I'm excited about doing Popi, and I feel that it's a quality show. I think it's the only comedy series except MASH that isn't shot entirely in a studio. We don't perform in front of an audience, and we don't have to rely on audience reaction. We can do without the one-liners and emphasize characterization. Abraham Rodriguez is not a silly man. I wouldn't have agreed to do the part if he had been. He is a working-class man, an immigrant with limited education and an accent, but he has integrity and dignity, and he commands respect from his fellow workers, as well as his sons. I'm not a comedian myself. I'm an actor who has played a wide variety of roles on the stage, in several movies and on television. But like Popi, I can see the humor in certain situations. I like the distinction Walter Matthau made between a comedian and a humorist. A comedian, he said, says funny things, whereas a humorist says things funny. The actors stepping in to play the boys, 9-year-old Anthony Perez and 7-year-old Dennis Vasquez, were complete amateurs, having never acted or even studied acting. Just like the original film, they were selected as the result of a wide casting call that went out to New York City elementary schools, which produced some 2,000 applicants. I found the original ads that ran in December 1974 in the New York Daily News, with one of them reading, "Popi TV series search continues. The new Popi TV series is now looking for an English-speaking Puerto Rican boy aged 10 to 13. This young boy must have títere, machismo, charm, and mucho energy. Why not take a chance and be at Junior High 13, the Auditorium, Madison Avenue and 106th Street, Monday, December 30th, 1974, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. 2,000 applicants were soon whittled down to 18, with Elizondo involved in the casting process. However, given the production schedule, there is no way they were given the extensive training and preparation that Alejandro and Figueroa were for the feature film. This lack of series prep came back to bite the production, judging from comments made by Elizondo some 40 years later in his interviews with the Television Academy, calling the boys the children of Beelzebub, and noting how often the rambunctious youngsters had to be corralled. Other than their appearance on the Popi series, I found absolutely no other information on these boys, and am not sure the additional credits given on IMDb for Anthony Perez are accurate. Popi, along with On the Rocks and Viva Valdez, also airing that season, was notable for being one of the earliest TV series featuring an all-Latino cast and theme. However, Elizondo later noted the lack of Latino writers behind the scenes, an issue that plagued the other series as well. This was also pointed out by Puerto Rican co-star Edith Diaz, who told Dick Kleiner in a period article, "In one script, I caught 2 errors. There was reference to the president of Puerto Rico, but we don't have a president, we have a governor. And the script talked about how Puerto Rico is owned by the United States, but we're not owned, we're more like a commonwealth." Her criticisms even extended to the title, which originated with the film. "The title is wrong. It's Popi, not Poppy. And it is not only what kids call their father, but what girls call their boyfriends. And the name of the character I play was wrong. Lupe isn't a Puerto Rican name. It's a Mexican name, coming from Guadalupe, the patron saint of Mexico. You never heard of a Puerto Rican girl named Lupe. AP writer Jay Sharbut called Popi a well-written, endearing, warm, and human comedy. Critic Buck Biggers commented, although the concept for Popi was sufficient to support a 1969 movie of the same name, it does not appear strong enough to support a series, especially without benefit of much, much stronger scripting, and in spite of the fine talent of Hector Elizondo. Given that the series was evidently never rerun, it soon fell into near total obscurity. I even found trivia columns in 1977 where readers wrote in to confirm the series even existed. Such inquiries to newspaper columns were common in this era where TV was ephemeral, and unless you saw a rerun, if you missed a show, you missed it. And information on past television was not easily indexed or accessed. Combine this with the fact that it aired in essentially what was the pre-consumer VCR days, with only the giant Sony Betamax LV-1901 TV console on the market at the time. No video recordings, not even the show intro, network promos, or clips have surfaced over the years that I've seen. And like many early to mid-70s short-lived TV shows, Popi is considered to be lost media. This will likely remain the case unless someone uncovers film prints or U-matic recordings that have been sitting in a warehouse somewhere. Meanwhile, the feature film is certainly not elusive, having been released to multiple forms of home video over the years, including high-definition Blu-ray. Although quite dated and tonally uneven, with the film shifting from a rough depiction of the city ghetto to an absurd farce in the second half, if you've never seen it, or if it's been a while, I encourage you to check it out. Even given the problematic aspects of the film from a modern perspective, Popi has a great period music score and gives us a snapshot not only of late 1960s Spanish Harlem, but also of the culture of the time, highlighting that while some things may have changed, other things are still the same. Forgotten TV is brought to you by executive producers Joshua Driscoll, Doc Pinko, K.L. Young, Kenny Siegel, and Tony Cook, with producers Julio Capa, Ron Sorrell, Eric Fusco, Ralph Carasillo, Trevor Pearson, John Malcolm, Tim Yabo, Lee Goldberg, and James Bellinger. And of course, thanks to all who support at the $1 to $3 levels. Forgotten TV is not affiliated with or authorized by United Artists, CBS, or any production company or network involved in the making of any TV show or film mentioned in this podcast. Links to Amazon are affiliate, and as an Amazon associate, Forgotten TV earns royalties from qualifying purchases made. All characters, films, and series mentioned are the property of their respective copyright holders, and no infringement is intended. Audio clips included are for the purposes of historical context, review, commentary, and criticism only, and are not intended to infringe. Additional audio used under license by Epidemic Sound. If you need music for your podcast or YouTube channel, check out Epidemic Sound. Link in the show notes. This podcast is copyright 2025 Forgotten TV Media. The views and opinions expressed by guests or quoted sources are their own and may not reflect the opinion of Forgotten TV Media, its patrons, or any future sponsors. This podcast is intended for entertainment purposes only. Information presented is based on a combination of first-hand personal accounts, period news media, books and magazine articles, and high-quality online sources. While reasonable effort has been made to include only factual information, Forgotten TV Media cannot guarantee the accuracy of every detail included and makes no representations or warranties for the content in this podcast and cannot be held liable for errors or omissions. And let's thank those YouTube channels for making some of that audio possible. Retro Trailer, Sample Copy Music, Like Things, Pete Seeger Topic, Unseen Trailers, History Comes to Life, Retro Alexander. Background information was sourced mainly from period newspaper articles, as well as the 1969 making-of documentary, One Summer of Stardom, viewable on YouTube. Special thanks to Billy Ingram of TV Party, Television Obscurities, and Popi screenwriter Bill Taub. Stay tuned for the next Forgotten TV, which will cover the 1971 TV movie Earth 2. Thank you for listening. See you over at the new website found at forgotten.tv. I am your writer, producer, and host, Chris Cooling, and this has been Forgotten TV.